Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 745th night, she resumed, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when King Badir Basim heard the words of his uncle Salah and his mother Julnar praising the daughter of King Al-Samadal, a flame of fire burnt in his heart full sore, and he was drowned in a sea which hath no bottom nor shore. Then Salah, looking at his sister, exclaimed, By Allah, O my sister, there is no greater fool among the kings of the sea than her father, nor one more violent of temper than he. So name thou not the girl to thy son, till we demand her in marriage of her father. If he favors us with his assent, we will praise Allah Almighty. And if he refuse us, and will not give her to thy son to wife, we will say no more about it, and seek another match. Answered Julnar, Right is thy rede. And they parleyed no more. But Badir passed the night with a heart on fire with passion for Princess Jauharah. However, he concealed his case, and spake not of her to his mother or his uncle, albeit he was on coals of fire for love of her. Now when it was morning, the king and his uncle went to the Hammam bath, and washed, after which they came forth and drank wine, and the servants set food before them, whereof they and Julnar ate their sufficiency, and washed their hands. Then Salah rose and said to his nephew and sister, With your leave, I would fain go to my mother and my father, for I have been with you some days, and their hearts are troubled with awaiting me. But Badir Basim said to him, Tarry with us this day, and he consented. Then quoth the king, Come, O my uncle, let us go forth into the garden. So they sallied forth and promenaded about the pastures, and took their solace a while, after which King Badir lay down upon a shady tree, thinking to rest and sleep. But he remembered his uncle's description of the maiden, and her beauty and loveliness, and shed railing tears reciting these 2 couplets. Were it said to me while the flame is burning within me, and the fire blazing in my heart and bowels, wouldst thou rather that thou shouldest behold them, or a draught of pure water? I would answer them. Then he sighed, and he wept and lamented, reciting these verses also. Who shall save me from love of a lovely gazelle, brighter bowed than the sunshine my Bonnibel? My heart, erst free from her love, now burns with fire for the maid of Al-Samadal. When Salah heard what his nephew said, he smote hand upon hand and said, There is no God but the God. Mohammed is the apostle of God, and there is no majesty, and there is no might save in Allah, the glorious, the great. Adding, O my son, heardest thou what passeth between me and thy mother respecting Princess Jauharah? Replied Badir Basim, Yes, O my uncle, and I fell in love with her by hearsay, through what I heard you say. Indeed, my heart cleaveth to her, and I cannot live without her. Rejoined his uncle, O king, let us return to thy mother, and tell her how the case standeth, and crave her leave that I may take thee with me, and seek the princess and her sire, after which we will farewell her, and I and thou will return. Indeed, I fear to take thee and go without her leave, lest she be wroth with me. And verily the right would be on her side, for I should be the cause of her separation from us. Moreover, the city would be left without a king, and there would be none to govern the citizens and look to their affairs. So should the realm be disordered against thee, and the kingship departed from thy hands. But Badir Basim, hearing these words, cried, O my uncle, if I return to my mother and consult her on such matters, she will not suffer me to do this. Wherefore I will not return to my mother, nor consult her. And he wept before him, and presently added, I will go with thee, and tell her not after when I will return. When Salah heard what his nephew said, he was confused and met his case, and said, I crave help of the Almighty in any event. Then seeing that Badir Basim was resolved to go with him, whether his mother would let him go or not, he drew from his finger a seal ring, whereon were graven certain of the names of Allah the Most High, and gave it to him, saying, Put this on thy finger, and thou shalt be safe from drowning and other perils, and from the mischief of sea beasts and great fishes. So King Badir Basim took the ring and set it on his finger. Then they drove into the deep. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now when it was the 746th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Badir Basim and his uncle, after diving into the deep, fared on till they came to Salah's palace, where they found Badir Basim's grandmother, the mother of his mother, seated with her kinsfolk, and going into them, kissed their hands. When the old queen saw Badir, she rose to him, and embracing him, kissed him between the eyes, and said to him, O blessed coming, O my son! How dost thou leave thy mother Julnar? He replied, She is well in health and fortune, and saluteth thee and her uncle's daughters. Then Salah related to his mother what had occurred between him and his sister, and how King Badir Basim had fallen in love with the Princess Jauharah, daughter of Al-Samadal, by report, and told her the whole tale from beginning to end, and adding, He hath not come save to demand her in wedlock of her sire. Which when the old queen heard, she was wroth against her son, and exceeding wrath, and sore troubled and concerned, and said, O Salah, O my son, in very sooth thou didst wrong to name the princess before thy nephew, knowing as thou dost that her father is stupid and violent, little of wit, and tyrannical of temper, grudging his daughter to every suitor, for all the monarchs of the main have sought her hand. But he rejected them all. Nay, he would none of them, saying, Ye are no match for her in beauty, or in loveliness, or in aught else. Wherefore we fear to demand her in wedlock of him, lest he reject us, even as he hath rejected others. And we are folk of high spirit, and should return broken-hearted. Hearing these words, Salah answered, O my mother, what is to be done? For King Badir Basim said, There is no help, but that I seek her in marriage of her sire, though I expend my whole kingdom, and he avoucheth that, and he take her, not to wife, he will die of love for her and longing. And Salah continued, He is handsomer and goodlier than she. His father was king of all Persians, whose king is now, and none is worthy of Jauharah, save Badir Basim. Wherefore I propose to carry her father a gift of hyacinths and jewels befitting his dignity, and demand her in marriage. And an he object to us that he is a king, behold, our man also is a king, and the son of a king. Or if he object to us her beauty, behold, our man is more beautiful than she. Or again, if he object to us the vastness of her dominion, behold, our man's dominion is vaster than hers, and her father and numbereth more troops and guards, for that his kingdom is greater than all that of Al-Samadal. Needs must I do my endeavor to further desire of my sister's son, though it relieve me of my life, because I was the cause of whatso hath betided, and even as I plunged him into the ocean of her love, so will I go about to marry him to her. And may Almighty Allah help me thereto. Rejoined his mother, Do as thou wilt, but beware of giving her father rough words, whenas thou speakest with him, for thou knowest his stupidity and violence, and I fear lest he do thee a mischief, for he knoweth not respect for any. And Salah answered, Hearkening and obedience. Then he sprang up, and taking 2 bags full of gems, such as rubies and bugles of emeralds, noble ores, and all manner of jewels, gave them to his servants to carry, and set out with his nephew for the palace of Al-Samadal. When they came thither, he sought audience of the king, and being admitted to his presence, kissed ground before him, and saluted him with the goodliest salam. The king rose to him, and honoring him with the utmost honor, bade him to be seated. So he sat down, and presently the king said to him, A blessed coming, indeed thou hast desolated us, O Salah, but what bringeth thee to us? Tell me thine errand, that we may fulfill it to thee. Whereupon Salah arose, and kissing the ground a second time said, O king of the age, my errand is to Allah, and the magnanimous liege lord, and the valiant lion, the report of whose good qualities the caravans far and near have trespassed, and whose renown for benefits and beneficence, and elemency, and graciousness, and liberty in all climes and countries hath sped. Thereupon he opened the 2 bags, and displaying their contents before Al-Samadal, said to him, O king of the age, happily wilt thou accept my gift, and by showing favor to me heal my heart. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 747th night, she continued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Salah offered his gift to the king, saying, My aim and end is that the sovereign show favor to me, and heal my heart by accepting my gift. King Al-Samandal asked, With what object dost thou gift me with this gift? Tell me thy tale, and acquaint me with thy requirement. And its accomplishment be in my power, I will straightly accomplish it to thee, and spare thee toil and trouble. And if it be unable thereunto, Allah compelleth not any soul aught beyond its power. So Salah rose, and kissing the ground 3 times, said, O king of the age, that which I desire thou art indeed able to do. It is in thy power, and thou art master thereof, and I impose not on the king a difficulty, nor am I gin demented that I should crave of the king a thing whereto he availeth not. For one of the sages saith, And thou wouldest be complied with, ask that which he can readily supply. Wherefore that of which I am come in quest, the king, whom Allah preserve, is able to grant. The king replied, Ask what thou wouldest have, and state thy case, and seek thy need. Then said Salah, O king of the age, know that I come as a suitor seeking the unique pearl and the hoarded jewel, the princess Jauharah, daughter of our lord the king. Wherefore, O king, disappoint thou not thy suitor. Now when the king heard this, he laughed till he fell backwards in mockery of him. O Salah, I had not thought thee a man of worth and a youth of sense, seeking not save what is reasonable, and speaking not save advisely. What then hath befallen thy reason, and urged thee to this monstrous matter and mighty hazard, that thou seekest in marriage daughters of kings, lords of cities and climates? Say me, art thou of rank to aspire to this great eminence, and hath thy wit failed thee to this extreme pass, that thou affrontest me with this demand? Replied Salah, Allah amend the king, I seek her not for myself. Albeit I am her match, and more than her match, for thou knowest that my father was king of seas, for all thou art this day of kings. But I seek her for King Badir Basim, lord of the lands of the Persians, and son of King Shahraman, whose puissance thou knowest. And thou object that thou art a mighty great king? King Badir is a greater, and if thou object thy daughter's beauty, King Badir is more beautiful than she, and fairer of form, and more excellent of rank and lineage, and he is the champion of the people of his day. Wherefore, that if thou grant my request, O king of the age, thou wilt have set the thing in its stead. But if thou deal arrogantly with us, thou wilt not use as justly, nor travel with us the road which is straight. Moreover, O king, thou knowest that the princess Jauharah, the daughter of our lord the king, must needs be wedded, and bedded, for the sage saith, A girl's lot is either grace of marriage or the grave. Wherefore, an thou mean to marry her, her sister's son is worthier of her than any other man. Now, when King Al-Samandal heard Salah's words, he was wroth with exceeding wrath. His reason well nigh fled from his soul, was like to depart his body for rage, and he said, O dog! Shall the like of thee dare to speak me thus, and name my daughter in the assemblies, saying that the son of thy sister Julnar is a match for her? Who art thou, and who is this sister of thine, and who is her son, and who was his father, that thou durst say to me such things, and address me with such address? What are you all in comparison with my daughter but dogs? And he cried out to his pages, saying, Take yonder gallows bird's head. So they drew their swords and made for Salah, but he fled, and for the palace gate sped, and reaching the entrance, he found his cousin and kinsfolk and servants, more than 1,000 horses, armed cap a pie and iron, and close-knitted mail coats, hending in hand spears, and naked swords glittering white. And these, when they saw Salah come running out of the palace, they having been sent by his mother to his succor, questioned him, and he told them what was to do, whereupon they knew that the king was a fool, and violent-tempered to boot. So they dismounted, and bearing their blades, went into the king Al-Samandal, whom they found seated upon the throne of his kingship, unaware of their coming, and enraged against Salah with furious rage. And they beheld his eunuchs and pages and officers unprepared. When the king saw them enter, drawn brand in hand, he cried out to his people, saying, Woe to you! Take me the heads of these hounds! But ere an hour had sped, Al-Samandal's party were put to the rout, and relied upon flight, and Salah and his kinsfolk seized upon the king and pinioned him. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 748th night, she pursued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Salih and his kinfolks pinioned the king, Princess Jauharah awoke, and knew that her father was a captive, and his guards slain. So she fled forth the palace to a certain island, and climbing up into a high tree, hid herself in its summits. Now when the two parties came to blows, some of King Al-Samadal's pages fled, and Badir Basim, meeting them, questioned them of their case, and they told him what had happened. But when he heard that the king was a prisoner, Badir feared for himself, and fled, saying in his heart, Verily, all this turmoil is on my account, and none is wanted but I. So he sought safety in flight, security to sight, knowing not whither he went, but destiny from eternity foreordained drave him to the very island where the princess had taken refuge. And he came to the very tree whereon she sat, and threw himself down like a dead man, thinking to lie, and repose himself, and knowing not there is no rest for the pursued, for none knoweth what fate hideth for him in the future. As he lay down, he raised his eyes to the tree. They met the eyes of the princess. So he looked at her, and seeing her to be like the moon rising in the east, cried, Glory to him who fashioned yonder perfect form, him who is the creator of all things, and who over all things is almighty. Glory to the great God, the maker, the shaper, and fashioner. By Allah, if my presentiments be true, this is Jauharah, daughter of King Al-Samadal. Methinks that when she heard of our coming to blows with her father, she fled to this island, and happening under this tree hid herself on its head. But if this be not the princess herself, 'tis one yet goodlier than she. Then he bethought himself of her case, and said in himself, I will arise and lay hands on her, and question her of her condition. And if she be indeed she, I will demand her in wedlock of herself, and so win my wish. So he stood up and said, O end of all desire, who art thou, and who brought thee hither? She looked at Badir Basim, and seeing him to be as the full moon, when it shineth from under the black cloud, slender of shape, and sweet of smile, answered, O fair of fashion, I am Princess Jauharah, daughter of King Al-Samadal, and I took refuge in this place because Salih and his host came to blows with my sire, and slew his troops, and took him prisoner with some of his men, wherefore I fled, fearing for my life, presently adding, And I weed not what fortune hath done with my father. When King Badir Basim heard these words, he marveled with exceeding marvel at this strange chance, and thought, Doubtless I have won my wish by the capture of her sire. Then he looked at Jauharah, and said to her, Come down, O my lady, for I am slain for love of thee, and thine eyes have captivated me. On my account and thine are all these broils and battles, for thou must know that I am King Badir Basim, lord of the Persians, and Salih is my mother's brother, and he it is who came to thy sire to demand thee of him in marriage. As for me, I have quitted my kingdom for thy sake, and our remaining here is the rarest coincidence. So come down to me, and let us twain fare for thy father's palace, that I may beseech Uncle Salih to release him, and I may make thee my lawful wife. When Jauharah heard these words, she said to him, 'Twas on this miserable gallows bird's account, then, that all this hath befallen, and that my father hath fallen prisoner, and his chamberlains and suite have been slain, and I have been departed from my palace, a miserable exile, and have fled for refuge to this island. But an I devise not against him some device to defend myself from him, he will possess himself of me, and take his will of me, for he is in love, and for aught that he doeth a lover is not blamed. Then she beguiled him with winning words and soft speeches, whilst he knew not the perfidy against him. She proposed and asked him, O my lord and light of my eyes, say me, art thou indeed King Badir Basim, son of Queen Julnar? And he answered, Yes, O my lady. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 749th night, she resumed, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Jauharah, daughter of King Al-Samadal, asked the youth, Art thou in very sooth King Badir Basim, son of Queen Julnar? And he answered, Yes, O my lady. Then she, May Allah cut off my father and gar his kingdom cease from him, and heal not his heart, neither avert from him strangerhood, if he could desire comelier than thou, or aught goodlier than these fair qualities of thine. By Allah, he is of little wit and judgment. Presently adding, But, O King of the age, punish him not for that he hath done more by token that, and thou love me a span. Verily I love thee a Cupid. Indeed, I have fallen into the net of thy love, and am become the number of thy slain. The love that was with thee hath transferred itself to me, and there is left thereof with thee but a tithe of that which is with me. So saying, she came down from the tree, and drawing near him, strained him to her bosom, and fell to kissing him, whereat passion and desire for her redoubled on him, and doubting not but she loved him, he trusted in her, and returned her kisses and caresses. Presently he said to her, By Allah, O princess, my uncle Salah set forth to me not a 40th part of thy charms, no, not a quarter carat of the 40 and 20. Then Jauharah pressed him to her bosom, and pronounced some unintelligible words, then spat on his face, saying, Quit this form of man, and take shape of bird, the handsomest of birds, white of robe, and red bill and legs. Hardly had she spoken, when King Badir Basim found himself transformed into a bird, the handsomest of birds, who shook himself and stood looking at her. Then Jauharah had with her one of her slave girls by name of Masina. So she called her and said to her, By Allah, but that I fear for the life of my father, who is his uncle's prisoner, I would kill him. Allah never requite him with good. How unlucky was his coming to us, for all this trouble is due to his hard-headedness. But do thou, O slave girl, bear him to the thirsty island, and leave him there to die of thirst. So Marsina carried him to the island in question, and would have returned and left him there, but she said in herself, By Allah, the Lord of such beauty and loveliness deserveth not to die of thirst. So she went forth from the island, and brought to him abounding in trees and fruits and rills, and setting him down there, returned to her mistress and told her, I have left him on the thirsty island. Such was the case of Badir Basim. But as regards King Salah, he sought for Jauharah after capturing the king and killing his folk, but finding her not, returned to his palace and said to the mother, Where is my sister's son, King Badir Basim? By Allah, O my son, replied she, I know nothing of him. For when it reached him that you and King Al-Samadal had come to blows, and that strife and slaughter had betided between you, and was affrighted and fled. When Salah heard this, he grieved for his nephew, and said, O my mother, by Allah, we have dealt negligently by King Badir, and I fear lest he perish, or lest one of the king of Al-Samadal's soldiers, or his daughter Jauharah, fall in with him. So should we come to shame with his mother, and no good betide us from her, for I took him without her leave. Then he dispatched guards and scouts throughout the sea elsewhere to find for Badir, but they could find no tidings of him. So they returned and told King Salah, wherefore cark and care redoubled on him, and his breast was straitened for King Badir Basim. For far concerning nephew and uncle, but as for Julnar the Sea-Born, after their departure, she abode in expectation of them, but her son returned not, and she heard no report of him. So when many days of fruitless waiting had gone by, she arose, and going down into the sea, repaired to her mother, who, sighting her, rose to her and kissed her, and embraced her, as did the mermaids her cousins. Then she questioned her mother of King Badir Basim, and she answered him, saying, O my daughter, of a truth, he came hither with his uncle. He took hyacinths and jewels, and carried them to King Al-Samadal, demanding his daughter in marriage for thy son. But he consented not, and was violent against thy brother in words. Now I had sent Salah nigh upon 1,000 horse, and a battle befell between them and King Al-Samadal. But Allah aided thy brother against him, and he slew his guards and troops, and took himself prisoner. Meanwhile, tidings of this reached thy son, and it would seem as he feared for himself, wherefore he fled forth from us without our will, and returned not to us, nor have we heard any news of him. Then Julnar inquired for King Salah, and his mother said, He is seated on the throne of his kingship, in the stead of King Al-Samadal, and sent in all directions to seek thy son and Princess Jauharah. When Julnar heard the maternal words, she mourned for her son with sad mourning, and was highly incensed against her brother Salah, for that he had taken him and gone down with him into the sea without her leave. And she said, O my mother, I fear for our realm, as I came to thee without letting any know, and I dread tarrying with thee, lest the state fall into disorder, and the kingdom pass from our hands. Wherefore I deem best to return and govern the reign till it please Allah to order our son's affair for us. But look ye forget him not, neither neglect his case, for should he come to any harm, it would infallibly kill me, since I see not the world save in him, in delight but in his life. She replied, With love and gladness, O my daughter. Ask not what we suffer by reason of this loss and absence. Then she sent to seek for her grandson, whilst Julnar returned to her kingdom, weeping-eyed and heavy-hearted. And indeed the gladness of the world was straitened upon her. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of this tale, until it be morrow.